Welcome to another episode of Jamming with Jason. Hey, I am very excited to have one of my good friends, Marty Stanley, back with me. If you've listened before, you probably heard her previous episode, and she is honestly one of my favorite people in the whole wide world, and she is living the life right now. And so I wanted to make sure and have her come on because she's got some changes that are going on in her life, and she's going to be out of pocket having fun all over the world, and I might not get to talk to her again for a little while. So I wanted to bring her on and share, because I think a lot of times there's wonderful things that we can experience and have in life. We just don't actually have those things in our awareness. And sometimes we have to say goodbye to something before we can say hello to whatever else is waiting for us in our life. So with that, let's go ahead and roll that episode now with Marty.
Yay.
Hey, Marty, I'm so glad to have you here with me again.
I'm so excited to see you. And I was trying to remember when we did the previous podcast. I was still living in La Jolla.
I think you were still in La Jolla. So it's been, it's been
at least 2 years.
Yeah, I think over 2 years, right? Because last time we talked, you were still in La Jolla, San Diego area. So, so maybe this will probably be kind of interesting for people, again, is to just, you had a experience in corporate. We kind of talked about that before. Public speaker, did a bunch of coaching in corporate for a lot of years afterwards that we kind of talked about in the previous episode. But maybe, for people that didn't hear the first episode, just give them the thumbnail on that and then kind of catch us up over the last 2 or 3 years. Because I think, like I said, I want to be Marty when I grow up, right? I mean, your life has just become something amazing that people only dream about, but you're living your dream right now. So I want to talk about that. Yeah.
It's funny because when you say sometimes you have to say goodbye, and as you know, I wrote a blog that came out that says it's time to say goodbye. And I got a note from a friend of mine that I met over 30 years ago, and she said, "You've been saying goodbye and hello for the last several years." So to do the recap for you, I think that there's this whole theme of saying goodbye and saying hello to something new. So if we go back, and I'll do this real quickly, I had a 20-year career in corporate as a vice president of human resources. One of the companies, this common theme of the two companies I worked for was that I helped revolutionize the industry of our businesses, not just the business, but the whole industry. So it was back in the 80s. I was in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and I worked for a small group health insurance company that was, it was just a little company selling in 3 states, but they had an idea of a better way to sell and administer insurance. And then we started incorporating technology, and we became $1 billion company, and we took over the whole market for small group health insurance, which is basically companies under 50 employees. And now that company is Humana. So I was part of that time period when we went from 250 employees to 1,700 and became $1 billion company and took over the world. We were pretty cocky.
Well, no, for healthcare, Humana is a huge, huge player in the industry.
Yeah. It wasn't Humana when I left there. We had a couple of different buyouts. It was started by 2 crazy entrepreneurs who I worked for and learned. They let me do a million things there. They let me be an entrepreneur within the business. So I created a training department that was nationally recognized, and I created a corporate wellness program that got top 25 in the country at a time when people weren't really talking about corporate wellness. So I remember the president called me up and he goes, "I don't know what you're doing or why we're doing this, but I hear everybody loves it, so keep going." Okay, Ron, I got it. And then finally he said, "Do you have a budget for this?" I said, "No, I really don't." "Does he want a budget?" I said, "Yeah." So,
that's always nice. It's usually the other way where you're like pleading for budget, right?
Yeah. Anyway, so there's a whole bunch of stories to go with that. But then I left there and I ended up moving that was in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Then I moved to Kansas City, Missouri. I worked for Blue Cross Blue Shield, which was the antithesis of where I'd been. And that was why they hired me, was because we'd stolen so much market share. They said, "You know something we don't know." I said, I think I do. And I think I can help. So I was with them as a VP of HR for about 5 years. And then I left and I became the first vice president of human resources for AMC Entertainment, movie theaters. And I got to work with the founder his name was Stan Durwood, and he was a revolutionary all by himself. He was a force to reckon with. And working with him was just this amazing experience, because everything that you see in movies or how you view a movie was Stan's idea. Everything, he's created the first multiplex, 2 screens. Used to be 1 screen forever. You'd see Sound of Music for a year. He created the first. And by the time I started, that was when we were starting the megaplexes. And a megaplex had 18 screens or more with stadium seating. And we built 50 while I was there around the country, and 1 in Japan. And we had to hire like 500 managers, 2,000 staff people. Everything in HR had to be totally revamped to meet the new business model, because the business model was so different. So I got to be part of revolutionizing that segment or that transition in movies, which was really fun. So then in 2000, I went out on my own, and I had created a mission statement that said that I wanted to empower people to live their dreams, and I wanted to impact millions of people doing it. And there were a lot of people who thought, oh, she's nuts. Like, who does she think she is, And so the business itself changed over the years, but the common theme was always about empowering people or organizations to get clear about what they wanted and put the action plans in place to get there. I did that through training programs. I did it through executive coaching, life coaching, books, blogs, seminars, conferences, which is how you and I met through National Speakers Association. And I literally realized at a given point that I'm living in Kansas City, Missouri, and thinking, why am I living here? I could live anywhere, and my business comes from everywhere. Why am I in the middle of the country? And
where it's cold and hot. Yeah.
And not to offend anybody, but this is just me. I said, I'm living in the middle of the country, and I grew up on the ocean and love the ocean and love big bodies of water. I said, I'm in the middle of the country with no water. I'm in a red state in the Bible Belt, and this is just not me. So I said, I need to go where I'm more aligned. And so at the age of 65, I said, I'm out of here. And a lot of people thought, holy cow, has she lost it? And I moved to La Jolla, California, and fell in love with it. I mean, I lived right across the street from the Pacific Ocean. And I walked out my back door, and there it was. So that was pretty cool. And because of technology, that was 2016. So I ended up, my clients were back in Kansas City, so I'd go back to Kansas City like every 6 weeks or so. And then I had a lot of coaching clients that I did on Zoom, so I could do that anywhere. So that kind of gets corporate and my personal business squared away. Is there anything else that you want to know about that?
No, I think that gets people up to it, and I think, again, we can talk about it now, or we can talk about it in a little bit too. But I think, one of the things that I love about you is you're not afraid of the change, right? I mean, at 65, you left Kansas City, which you've been there for years,
25
right?
years,
and moved yourself to San Diego, La Jolla, right? Completely different thing, but you just kind of packed up and moved. Where a lot of people, when they get to 65, they're like, my life is over. I need to retire. I need to sit on the couch and, I don't know, do whatever you do in retirement, right? But you didn't, right? You packed it up and you moved. So I mean, to me, again, I think that's just amazing, right? And one of the things that I've learned from you is it's like it's never too late to
Right.
live your dreams, right? It's like
Right.
don't let age hold you back. And the interesting thing is your life's almost even gotten more interesting since then,
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
opinion.
No kidding. No
Right.
kidding. I mean, and so I'm just going to throw this in and people can take it for what it's worth. But I've always been a little bit like woo woo, liking some woo woo things. Like I would go to psychic fairs and find it cheap entertainment. And back in 2015, I went to a psychic fair and this woman looked at me and she said to me, honey, you belong in La Jolla. I said, what? She said, you got to get out of here. It's time for you to go. And I said, well, I thought I was should go because I had been thinking about moving, but I was thinking about like the Northwest. She goes, no, honey, your people are in La Jolla and there's a man there that you're going to meet. And then she proceeded to describe this person who is now my husband. But so that was in 2015. I didn't move there till a year later. I went out and I did some research and, checked out the market and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't like I just took the advice of the psychic and said, I'm off and running. I did a lot of due diligence. But anyway, but when I left Kansas City, and the people who are listening to this should know a couple things. One, I've been single for 35 years at that time, and I don't have any children. So I really have a lot of freedom and flexibility to do things. And I know there are a lot of people who don't have that level of freedom and flexibility, but I've also coached thousands of people who do have kids and do have commitments and relationships, and they're still able to create their dreams too if they want to. So anyway, so off I go to La Jolla, and I continue working, and I'm like, where is this guy? Because that was another reason why I wanted to move, was because I dated and never really met anybody. And the people that I'd met, I really realized I wasn't attracted. No, I should have a better way to say it. A lot of the Midwestern men weren't attracted to somebody like me. So that would be a better way of wording it. Because, I'm more of a California girl. Yeah. And I was an East Coast girl growing up, but I always felt like I was a California girl. So at the end of 2019, I had several major clients who all completed their contracts at about the same time in the end of 2019. So I went and did part of the Camino in Spain, walking the Camino. Mm-hmm. I didn't do the whole thing, I just did a portion, but it was a great trip to kind of clear my head. And I'm thinking, okay, what's next? What do I want to do? I didn't have any clients in San Diego. I didn't really want to start a whole new marketing plan. By this time, I was old. Well, I was probably 68.
Yeah, because I remember that was about the time that we had lunch that one time, I remember, and we were talking about this, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, what am I going to do? What are you going to do? And I remember you talking about this. So yeah, walk us through this, right? Because I think, again, I mean, there's a lot of us that there's these different inflection points in our life where we kind of stop and it's like, okay, well, what's next, right? Yeah, I mean, how do you figure it out?
Right. And when I had lived in Kansas City, I was very engaged in all of my business was referral eventually. And so the thought of being in California and establishing a base of connections, because I've been traveling so much, I had some connections, but I really didn't have, how long it can take to build up that network.
Yeah.
It takes years to build up that network. And I thought, shoot, I don't know that I want to do this. I don't know that I want to invest the time and the money and to create a new network here. I'm not that committed anymore. I thought about creating a YouTube channel. This was funny. I started a YouTube. This is really ironic. I started a YouTube channel called Rejuvenating Your Life. But I had no motivation to rejuvenate anything. So that really didn't go very far. So I'm thinking about, okay, what am I going to do? I mean, it was kind of a quandary because I really wasn't ready to retire, but I wasn't ready to start the next big thing. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. And by March, any speaking engagement, I had some speaking engagements that had been booked. I had one up in Napa that I was really excited about, different gigs. Well, they all got canceled. And then everybody's freaking out. And I'm thinking, how am I ever going to create something new in this environment? So I was in a real slump. I was in a real slump in terms of what's next. And, being a spiritual person like you, I did a lot of praying and meditating and thinking, I just have to trust whatever's going to happen is going to be the right thing to happen. And I should interject that in the fall of 2019, I hired a matchmaker, and because I've done the online dating and unsuccessfully for many years. And so I thought, well, I'll hire a matchmaker and see what happens. And so I'd had like 3 dates with the matchmaker. They were disastrous. I mean, just
worse than online dating.
Oh, yeah. I had some very specific criteria that related to politics in particular. And also another thing was I wanted somebody who wanted to travel, and they had to have an active passport and be an active traveler already. I didn't want to be with somebody who goes, oh, I've always wanted to travel. Now I have somebody to do it with. No, that's not what I was looking for. So those were the 2 main criteria that I had. Somebody who had the health and the financial resources to be able to pick up and go and travel. And the first guy hadn't been out of the United States since 1980. Okay, that wasn't going to work. And then the next guy had actually worked overseas, and he goes, I've done all that. I don't want to do that anymore. And then the third guy was like the total opposite politically than I was. And it was like almost unbearable, and I had to leave. So, so I'm thinking, this is not working out. Anyway, it was in March when the pandemic hit, and I just really upped my game in terms of my spiritual practices of prayer and meditation and different reading and saying, I don't know what to do. And I remember there was a specific day that I thought to myself, you know what? If my career is complete right now, I'm okay with that, because I don't feel like I'm leaving anything on the table. There is nothing left out there for me that I would say, gosh, I just want to do this one thing. I mean, I just want to do this. I mean, I'd had a radio show, I'd written books, I'd, been a national speaker. Just a bunch of stuff. I'd done a lot of really interesting things that I didn't feel like there was anything that I was saying, like, oh, if I could just do this. I thought, if I've done, and I mean, this is a kid in high school who they said, really, you're not college material, so don't plan on a career. So I'm feeling pretty happy, like I've done pretty well.
You've already won the lottery, right? By this point in your life. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so that gave me a sense of peace of mind. Even though I didn't know what I wanted to do, I had a sense of peace of mind that I wasn't giving anything up. I felt complete with the work that I had done. And I felt that I felt like my mission of wanting to inspire or empower 1 million people, I felt I had done that. I'd done that through all the different venues of reaching people over the course of 20 years. So then one day in early June, I get a phone call from a guy from the matchmaking company. And we talked on the phone, and we decided to meet for lunch. Now, here we are in the middle of the pandemic, right? June 2020. And we meet for lunch, and he seemed nice. A little bit of a flat line.
Flat line.
He was a little bit of a flat line, but he seemed nice enough. And his name was Jerry. And we had a wonderful lunch. I had a great lobster salad sandwich and a great Chardonnay. And we're overlooking the Pacific. It was one of my favorite places to go. And so I thought, well, he's nice enough, So he called me a couple days later and invited me to lunch at his house next week. I thought, okay, I get to check out how this guy lives, see what kind of place he lives in.
Is he a hoarder, right? Do you have to walk
exactly.
down the narrow things? Or?
Yeah, I mean, trust me, being single 35 years, I've seen a lot that I didn't want. So I go out, he's about 30 minutes away from where I live, and I go through this gated courtyard to his house, and there's fountains and beautiful palms and lush plants, and Andrea Bocelli's playing in the background and has a chilled glass of Chardonnay for me, and I'm thinking, holy cow, this is the same guy, It was very engaging, and he's also a chef. So he was making a quiche, and this is kind of funny because I asked him if I could do anything to help, and I can cook, but I'm not like a chef. He goes, sure, put the pie weights on the crust. I'm like, what are pie weights? And what kind of a guy has them and uses them? So in case you don't know, pie weights are they look like little BBs, and you put wax paper down on top of the crust, and then you put the pie weights on there. You could use uncooked beans too. And it just keeps the crust from bubbling up and puffing out. So anyway, he made this fabulous quiche. Anyway, during that lunch, this is our second date, he looked at me and he said, we're going to be together. And I had this sense that he was absolutely right, but it was startling.
Dude, slow down. This is our second date, right? Yeah.
Right. And he swooped in and gave me this big kiss. And he said, I can teach you a lot. And my first reaction is, yeah, right. Thanks. I've done very well on my own. You're going to teach me a lot? Okay. So I said, okay, fine. What are you going to teach me? He goes, I can teach you about love. Well, I was hooked.
You had me at hello, right?
I know. I was literally speechless. So I'll condense this down, but 45 days later, well, actually a couple of weeks later, Jerry's wife had passed away 2 years earlier. He had his own business. He had done a million things. He had a dude ranch in California, a B&B in Laguna Beach. He had a catering company that was #1 in Southern California for 25 years. And his wife had Alzheimer's for over 10 years. So he was dedicated to his businesses and his wife. And so he sold his businesses so he could spend full time with his wife. And she had died 2 years earlier. They'd been married for 45 years. And I was his first date. Holy cow. So I'm thinking, this is nuts. So a couple of weeks later, you can't do anything during the pandemic, so we're riding around in the car, and Jerry said to me, what would you think of going to St. Croix, Virgin Islands? I said, sure. Sure, I'd go. My parents had been there. I used to go to St. Martin, and he'd been researching St. Croix as a place to live because it's the U.S. territory, and he had a whole file 3 inches thick. So, in fact, on the second date, he gave me the file and said, take a look at this. So, I said, sure. So we went back to his house and pulled out the computer, and we went online to look at a place to rent here because we thought we could move there. So we're we see this house that's for rent. It looks like something we would want to buy. And so we call up, this is on Saturday, we call up the realtor who's listing it and said, hi, we're in San Diego and we'd like to come down and take a look at this house. And if we like it, we're prepared to buy it and pay cash. So can we come down and see it? And of course, you can imagine the person on the other end of the phone.
Yes, please, hurry up, be on the next flight.
So by the time we were done that Sunday, we had booked our flights to go like 3 days later because we had to wait to get a COVID test. And also what happened, we booked and we were going to be here in St. Croix for 2 weeks. But also what happened, this is how funny, synchronicity, when you get clear about what you want and it's going to be right for you, this also gets to the point of being able to say goodbye. You got to be able to say goodbye. Because when you say hello, lots of new things open up. So that Sunday, after I went back to my condo in La Jolla, Jerry called his neighbors and said, you said that if I was ever going to sell my house, that your kids might be interested. They said, yes, we'll be right over. Well, by Monday morning, they came by and they said, we're qualified, we'll pay you full price. So before we had even gone to St. Croix, Jerry had a buyer for his house. And when we came down here for 2 weeks, checked it. And by the time we left, we had signed papers to buy the house. It was in escrow. And we went back to California, sold everything. I had sold a lot of stuff when I moved to California. And so it wasn't a big deal for me. But Jerry had an estate sale, and we just pretty much sold everything, got in the car, drove east, put the car on a ship, flew to St. Croix, and we've been here for the last 2 years. Pretty much 60 days after meeting each other.
Well, I know, and that's why, there's so many different things, right, that we can learn from this. And this is why I love talking to people and hearing about the experiences, right? Because, in hindsight, things become clear, right? In 2015, the psychic told you need to move to La Jolla. There's a man there who's waiting for you. You move to La Jolla, things are great, you're loving life, but you're thinking, where the hell is this man? Well,
Right.
his wife was still alive, right?
Exactly.
And so the timing, the man was there for you, but the timing wasn't right until 2020. So 4 years almost after you'd moved there, right? But then you come together and it's just like, again, kind of surrendering and saying, I don't necessarily know what I'm supposed to do next, but you did have a pretty clear idea, right, of what you wanted in a man.
Yeah.
You had set intentions there. Yeah.
Yeah. My language was I wanted to be with a man who was healthy physically, financially, emotionally, spiritually. I don't remember what else, but I just want somebody who was really healthy and had his act together and, was emotionally healthy and financially healthy. And Jerry's all that. He's a gourmet cook. Can't beat that. Yeah, so I was clear. I'd never experienced that. I'd never experienced all of that. So that was like, oh my, now what do I do now that I am with somebody that I think, and that you want to be sure you're not imagining things. Sometimes we see what we want to see and it isn't always there, in relationships. So it was kind of like really looking, and he was really smart. He said, I'm going to do everything I can so that you feel confident and safe and can trust me. I want to make sure that you really trust me, and that I will always do what's best for us. So I'll put you first. I'll put our relationship first. And that was the first time I'd ever heard anything like that. And it's been amazing. And I'm learning about love. I mean, he's taught me more about love than I could ever imagine at this age.
Well, and that's what's so beautiful, and just kind of watching what you guys have been doing and the love that you do have for each other. That's why, again, I told you, before we hit record, I'm just so happy for you. I mean, because of all the people in the world who deserve this. Marty, my friend, you deserve this.
You're gonna make me cry now.
I know. Well, I'm gonna cry too if I keep going, right?
Yeah.
But it's I think one of the things that I wanted to dig in a little bit there too is, it happened quick, right? You guys happened, you met in June, 2 dates into it, he's kind of like, we're gonna be together, and you're like, oh shit, yeah, I kind of feel that too, right? But and things just move so fast. I mean, like you said, I think within 60 days you were, living in St. Croix, it moved, thousands of miles away, and it sold everything. And so I think, I just wanted to talk about this a little bit, because it seems like too, that when we're sitting there, we want something else. We're intending for something else. We're trying to manifest something else. And then the things happen. It kind of scares us, right? Because again, it goes outside of our comfort zone. And so I see a lot of people that they want a certain thing, the signs kind of show up, but then they're like, no, I don't know. It's a little too fast. This doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Come on. It's not logical for me to give up my whole life and, move halfway across the world with this man that I've only known for 60 days.
Yeah.
So how did you know, or how did you get past that? Because like I said, most people want to turn and run, or they
Right.
want to just kind of stay where they're at instead of accepting what's right in front of them.
That's a great question. And the best way I can answer it is, given that I've had a lot of experience in dating different people, you can experience it whether it's in a job or with a boss or in a relationship. Your gut tells you when there's something off. If there's something that feels a little off or makes you a little uneasy, that goes beyond just oh my gosh, this is happening fast. But there's something there about the other person that's nagging you. You got to pay attention to that. Because I've been in relationships where I thought, oh my God, this is like the perfect guy for me. And he ends up breaking my heart. But if I was honest with myself, I would have said, you know what, this, and this were red flags. And I chose not to pay attention. So in this case with Jerry, I never once had any doubt. Not once. As fast as things were going, and fortunately, my friends and family weren't like, whoa, they stuck with me and didn't, a couple of them would say, have you seen any red flags? Or, they would ask. But then I asked somebody the other day, I said, did you ever have any hesitation when I was making all these changes? She said, hell no. We know you, and we knew you knew what you wanted, and we trusted you. So, and I also trusted myself at that point. And I trusted my intuition. And I had spent so much in trying to be clear about what I wanted and trusting the universe to provide, so to speak, that I continued the meditations, I continued the prayer. And I think that also helped. One of my phrases that I always and still use is that I'm always divinely guided and protected. And I always feel like I'm divinely guided and protected. to make the right choices. And so, yeah, does that answer your question?
No, it does. Yeah. Because like I said, I mean, I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in other people's lives too, where sometimes, and maybe it's, some of the societal things that we get taught too, right? Like if it's
Yes,
too good to be true, then it
it
isn't
is.
true. Right. And
Yeah.
it's like, but sometimes it really is. And it really is that easy. Right. I mean, too, to where sometimes it feels like that we don't deserve it because we don't love ourselves enough to actually accept that protection and abundance when it comes to us, right? Like, well, I haven't worked hard enough for it, right? I mean, because you could have sat there and said that too. It's like, I've been single for 35 years and this guy just shows up in my life, and 2 dates into it, we know, and it's like, I didn't have to work very hard for that, so it must not be
But I worked
right.
35 years to get
You
there.
work 30. I know. See, that's the thing that we forget, though, right?
Yeah.
It's like you spent 35 years preparing for the perfect man to come along at the perfect time.
And also along the way, and this was part of the prayer and meditation, was that I wanted to be ready for this. I personally, if this is everything that I wanted to be ready to receive and accept. And I think that's where it goes back to what you just said. I don't deserve this and everything else. But part of my prayer and meditation and work over the years, I've done a lot of self-development work, has really been about being ready to receive. And you can start receiving at a very elementary level. Like I had knee surgery several years ago, and I had to learn to receive that people were going to bring me food and take care of me. People were going to come over and clean my house for me. And I had to be okay with everybody volunteering to take care of me when I was used to doing everything myself. So you can start to practice receiving, because part of receiving is also giving. But when you receive, it's also a gift to the person who wants to give.
Yeah, because I think that's one. I know for me, it's hard to receive, right? Because again, I've always been taught, I mean, Midwestern values in my family, right? We're a working family. We kind of grew up with all of that sort of stuff. And so, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. And all those different, things like that for me, often it's still difficult to just receive and accept. But if we're not willing to receive and accept, those things don't come along either, right? Because, so like you said, we have to start doing things to make us ready to receive, even things like accepting meals when people want to bring them over. What were some of the other things that you did as well to try to help you, be more in that receiving frame?
This is a tough question. I got to think about it now. Because I've always done a lot of personal growth and development work. So I would say it really escalated during the pandemic, particularly with that book that I mentioned to you.
Mm-hmm.
That really took my, I'll hold it up if that's okay with you.
Yeah. No, because actually let's do a shout out to it, because I want to, it's Change Me Prayers by Tosha Silver, right? So if you're not watching the video, but that's the name of it, and we'll put that, try to put that in the show notes too.
As we talked before this started, her first book is called Outrageous Openness. It's about being open to receive. And I listened to a talk that she did at Google when her first book came out. If you go onto YouTube, just look for Tosha Silver on YouTube, and there's a talk. It's about 50 minutes long at Google that was done maybe about 7 or 8 years ago. But it kind of gives you a preview of the way of thinking about being outrageously open to receive. And that just kind of knocked my preconceived ideas. It really shook them up. And I'm like, holy cow, I've been doing this long. I've kept thinking, be clear in my intentions of what I want. But it was about being open to receive. When you when you know what you want, you just let it go and you trust God, the universe, whatever you want to call the higher power, whatever it is. And the Change Me prayers was a follow-up. And at first I thought, I don't want to read books about changing me, you know.
I think I'm pretty good the way I am.
I don't want to read about this. So, but I started reading some of these little prayers. She has samples in there, like, and they're really great. It just kind of puts you at ease. Like, I don't have to have it all figured out. And then this is all what happened in this time period between March and June of 2020. Because I really went into kind of a funk of what am I going to do with my life? And I found this, and so all of a sudden I just started to settle down. And I thought, you know what? I don't have to figure it out. I don't have to be doing anything. Like, holy moly, like that was a new concept. And for people who I've worked with over the years, I was always taught people about creating intentions. What are your intentions of what you want? So to give you an example, and I think this is hilarious, because I always had intentions, like if I was doing online dating or whatever, you know, I wanted somebody who was a college graduate, somebody who was spiritual, somebody who was probably Catholic or Protestant, somebody who was, you know, politically aligned. You know, I had my criteria. Well, Jerry is the opposite of everything I had on paper. He's 9 years older. He's Jewish, agnostic, college dropout. And I said the worst was he was a Republican. I could handle everything else, but really? So we had some great conversations about that. And we really are much more simpatico. And I'm not as nutty as I might try to sound, but we're very simpatico in many ways. But it's just amazing to me how, and he said to me, you were looking in all the wrong places, you know. And I was not looking for what was really important, which was how he treats me.
Mm-hmm.
When he said to me, because I asked him on our first date, I said, what made your marriage so successful? Because they worked together as well. And he said, I always put her first, and she put me first. We put our marriage first. And I was like, wow, what would that look like? Because I'd never heard anybody say anything like that, and I had never experienced being put first. And I thought, what would that be like? And he was shocked that I was shocked.
Well, because that's what he lived for the 45 years, right? He didn't know anything any different.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
well, and I wanted to go back too, because I know we've brought up prayer and meditation a few times, right? Mm-hmm. And so I just want to talk about the prayer side of it for a minute, because I know, you know, most people are familiar with meditation, but I think, you know, I grew up very religious, right? And so I was always taught to pray, and there was a certain way that we prayed. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of got to the point too, where I threw religion out in my life, and I became, you know, rather atheistic to begin with, mm-hmm. right? Because I was just throwing everything out. And then I kind of softened to agnostic, and now I've come back to like full blown woo spiritual, right? And I know for me that term prayer always, I mean, it was up until the last year or two, I still had a hang up with that word, right? Because it's like, mm-hmm. I'm not praying to Jesus, right? Because I don't have that relationship with that being like the Christian world has, right? And so it always kind of felt weird to me. But when you're using the term prayer, it's not in a religious standpoint. So I wanted to kind of go there, because I'm guessing that, I don't know if you had the hang up too, like I did, but what prayer, again, to the universe, the great spirit, the bigger connection, if you don't believe in God or Christ or in a formal religion, how prayer, though, is still so important, from a protection and
Right.
abundance of the universe standpoint.
And to me, if I can just read, I just opened up, I thought, I'll see if I can find a really short prayer from the Change Me prayers.
Yeah, yep.
Because I love
Perfect.
the way she words it. And this one's called Relax. Okay. So like she has different topics like relax or intuition or disappointment, dealing with disappointment and things. So there's different topics. So I opened up to relax. And here's an example. And this is what I love about prayer. Because she taught me a different way to pray. And I make up my own now too, but this is a good example. It just says, oh, beloved. Beloved could be the tree, it could be God, it could be higher power, it could be whatever you want. Oh, beloved, change me into one who knows how to relax completely, sleep deeply, and receive all the blessings of every moment exactly as it presents itself with ease and gratitude. So, like all of a sudden, you can just feel your blood pressure coming down, like relaxing. I can relax into this with ease and gratitude. Teach me how to relax with ease and gratitude. Okay, fine.
Well, and I'm guessing too, I don't know if you had the same thing, but I mean, to me, those are beautiful words, very simple way of setting intention and kind of throwing it out there.
Yep.
And as you were reading that, I felt my body relax, and I actually felt what I feel is a hit from the universe, if you will. I call them hits, right? Where I felt that relaxing, calm, warm feeling go through my body.
Yeah.
Right. And so, again, there's power in that. When you say that, you can feel everything that we're connected to, right, wanting to help you in that, because you're offering that prayer of what it is that you actually want. And it's much different than usually how religions dogmatically talk about prayer, right, and how we have to do prayer.
Usually my prayers used to be asking for something, specific. I want this, and this, I mean, and that's not really prayer. That's like creating, Tosha Silver laughs about it because she says it's like, you're not going to Costco here. You're not going to Costco with your list of what you want.
Well, and there's a book that I read recently called Pray the Shaman's Way, which is kind of similar. It's the same kind of thing for me as far as, because when you think about how most people pray or are taught to pray in religion, it's usually, like you said, going to Costco. Oh, please help me win the lottery. I need this, I need that, I need this, I need that, right? And it's like a little kid coming and begging for mommy and daddy, right? And it's like, rescue me, help me, and instead, if you switch it around, like was talked about there, or kind of in the book that I was reading, to where, instead of saying, please help me find a man, right? Instead, you're switching it around to say, I am so grateful and thankful to you for providing me with the man of my dreams.
Exactly. And there's even a way that she words that in here that is really beautiful for people who are looking for love or looking for, and of course I'm not going to be able to find it. I'm not going to be able to find it now, but she does address that so that you can put aside the angst and even the specificity, the specifics of what you want.
Yeah, I can't say anything.
Yeah, the specifics of what you want. So anyway, it's just, so so saying hello and goodbye. I keep thinking of the Beatles song. I say,
you say hi. Yeah.
So I was saying goodbye all along. I've been saying goodbye to a lot of things I was taught. I was saying goodbye to old habits. I was saying goodbye to old ways of thinking, and being open and saying hello to, there are opportunities, for people who are, as they're getting older, thinking, I'm too old for this. No. I mean, personally, I felt in the career that I'm in, they want to see somebody who's older, who has some stripes on their sleeve and who has a few wrinkles and experienced things. So age, at least in our profession, can be a good thing. You don't want to learn about managing change and organizational change from a 25-year-old because they don't have the experience. Or the same thing with just getting older. Yeah, I mean, just because I turned 65, I thought, hell, why not? In fact, that's Jerry and I created a new mantra, and our new mantra is 2 words: why not?
There you go. Right.
So, do we have time to talk 1 minute about the next adventure?
Oh, we do. Well, and before we get there too, because I wanted to, we've got time if you got time, because I could talk to you all day. But I wanted to bring up, because I think just in case people might have skipped over what we just said when you were talking about the specificity, right, as well. So I thought it was interesting, right, because you had in your mind something very specific that you were looking for in a man, right? You were looking for that when you were online dating. You were doing that with the matchmaking service, even though they weren't sending you what you said you wanted, right? But you picked up that book and you started praying differently and opening yourself up to just receive, right?
I received.
And within 3 months, a man shows up who doesn't fit any of your specific criteria,
Yeah.
but he fits the most important criteria, which is the love and the companionship and the fun that you guys are having. And so, it's just a reminder to me and to everybody who's listening too, is stop being so goddamn specific about
exactly
what we think we have to have, because the universe knows much better and wants to probably deliver something to us much greater than what we can even comprehend, because we're not even aware that these other things exist.
So it's kind of funny because Jerry, we laugh about it because I say I was looking for love, which is why I hired the matchmaker. Jerry was actually looking to buy a Porsche. And
not a lot of space to drive it down in St. Croix.
Right. He wanted a Porsche, and then he also wanted to get a big aquarium. But he was online looking for Porsches, and he saw this ad for like over 50 and single and matchmaking, and he looked at it, and he had no intentions of anything. But he clicked on it, and the next thing you know, he's answering some questions, and he gets a phone call from them saying, "Come on in, we want to meet with you." So that's how he got to the matchmaker. He wanted to buy a Porsche, and I said, "You got something better than the Porsche, baby." But anyway,
yeah,
so,
much better.
But you know what? He didn't know he was looking. This is what was interesting, because he was in such a state of grief. When I mentioned he was flatlined on our first date, he didn't know what hit him when we got together for that first date. And he hadn't had a date in 45 years. He didn't even know that he didn't know what he didn't know. And he had been grieving of the loss. And then as we just had this conversation the other day, that in the early weeks, he felt guilty. He felt guilty and a bunch of other things, because all of a sudden he could see new life. And so in fact, what he will say to me is, he said, "You really saved me, and you've created a whole life that I never expected." And so the people who are listening, when I said Jerry's 9 years older, Jerry turned 80 this year. So, and yesterday we met up with somebody, and Jerry, as his age came up. So Jerry said, "How old do you think I am?" This woman goes, "Oh gosh," she goes, 60?
Yeah.
Yeah, we like her a lot. So, but anyway, yeah, he's very young at heart, looks great, plays tennis, 3 days a week for 2 hours at a time. I mean, he's in great physical health and mental and emotional health. So, but also, we looked at a picture of him from right after I met him to today, and he looks much
Totally
younger,
different. Yeah.
much younger today. But anyway, yeah. So,
Yeah, no, it's there's a lot of things that we talked about in here too. You know, this is one of those episodes people can go back and listen to many, many times and get so much out of it. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about, because again, I was amazed, you know, before we hit record, some of the things you guys have in store, right? Which again was one of the messages I wanted to help share with people is so much of the time when people get later in life, they think their life is over, right? Even like Jerry, you know, right after his wife died, I think he was, you know, okay, I'm going to buy a Porsche, you know, because I want to do a couple of these things before I die. Probably was going through his head, right? And he never was aware that, man, you know, Marty's just waiting for you, dude. Just wait, right? I mean, your life's going to be different. And so here you are, right? You know, he's 80, you're 71-ish. Yeah. Can't believe. Anyway, you don't look it either, right? You don't act it either. But what you guys are about to embark on as well, right? Where most people would think, oh, 80 and 71, you're old, you know, you can't do anything. But holy crap. I mean, like I said, so tell people kind of what you guys have planned, because again, it's never too late, and why not?
And
right?
why not? Exactly. So we moved to St. Croix officially November 1st of 2020. And we bought this beautiful island home, and we overlook the Caribbean, and there's a golf course out in the distance. I mean, it's really lovely. And it was furnished most of the houses that you buy here, the more high-end houses are going to have furniture in them because everything has to be shipped to the island. So we brought very little stuff with us. Jerry brought his kitchen knives, you know, it's like good chef knives. We brought a bread maker and an ice cream maker, you know. Anyway, we didn't bring much. But when we got here, we realized that the previous owner had pretty much used the house as a rental property. And it looked like it had a lot of deferred maintenance. So within the first 2 months, we said, you know what, we'd seen a couple of our neighbors' homes, and I said, Jerry, we're living in a ghetto. I mean, we gotta screw this up. So anyway, we ended up spending the next 8 months. That nothing structurally had to be done. We did redo the kitchen and totally revamp the kitchen, but everything else, it was just paint and, you know, getting things up to speed. We had to replace all the electrical because of the salt air, you know, things road. So we had like 150 light switches, you know, and electrical outlets all replaced, stuff like that. So the house has been done for about a year now. And living on island life presents challenges. There's a lot of great things about it. We love living in the bubble that we live in. But St. Croix is a working island, and it's not a resort island. It's not like St. Thomas where, you know, it's more resorty and that kind of thing. St. Croix is much more of a working island. The biggest employer is the refinery, which has had a lot of issues. But anyway, it's a funky little island. There's so much you can't get. I mean, we have 2 Kmarts and a dollar store. If you can't get it at Kmart or the dollar store, you probably don't need
it. You're not going to need it because you can't get it.
Right, you can't get it.
You can't get Amazon Prime delivery tomorrow either, right?
Yeah. No next day delivery. They actually charge us, you know, to ship here. A lot of places won't ship here. So then we have to have stuff shipped to Florida and then ship from Florida to here if we really want something. So just going to the grocery store, I mean, half the time they don't have, I mean, I know the states have experienced this with the pandemic and the supply chain, but it's hard. You bring your car in to be serviced and you might have to bring it in 3, 4, 5 times to get it done. Oh, we forgot to do that. Well, sorry, we don't have the part. we're going to have to wait for the part, stuff like that. So, make a long story short, we wanted to start travel. So we designated 2022 as our year of travel. And early this year, we did a road trip in California. And while we were there, we got married in a hot air balloon. And I don't know if you knew that or saw that.
I don't think I saw that one. Yeah.
Yeah. We got married in a hot air balloon in Sonoma County. As we thought about getting married, and I thought, we don't want to have, people coming down here. It's too hard to get here. It's expensive to get here. So I thought this would be a perfect way to do it. But the other thing was I told him, I said, Jerry, I got to marry you before you turn 80 because I am not marrying an 80-year-old man. Period. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So there you go. So then we planned a trip. We started planning these trips actually last year. And so we just completed one that was in France. We did 5 days in New York and then 5 days in Paris and then 11 days on a river cruise in Bordeaux. That was all about food and wine. And now Tuesday, we're going to Spain and Portugal for a month. And but as we're exploring, like, what do we want to do with our lives? And obviously I said I wanted to travel. Jerry was in Europe when he was 20, but not since then because his businesses required him to stay close to home. And then with his wife being ill, sorry, I've got mosquitoes in front of me. Excuse me. So with his wife being ill, they couldn't travel. So now we can. The pandemic's over. Or kind of over. So we want to take advantage of it. And then realizing that as much as we like it here, we don't know that this is our retirement place, but we want to travel. So what we ended up doing was we just listed the house as a long-term rental and also as a short-term rental possibility for the holiday season. And we got a long-term rental starting in January for 6 months. And it's a marine biologist from North Carolina is coming down here on a grant to work on the coral reefs. He and his family are coming down here. They've been on the island before. They know the island. And they're going to be renting the house for 6 months. So we're going to take that 6 months and travel around Europe. We don't know where.
Well, see, and that's what I love too, right? Is it's. I mean, here you are again, where most people would look and it's like, are you crazy? Yeah, but why not? Right?
Why not?
Why not? Because again, it's like we never know how long we have.
Right.
And so why not? Right. I mean, you're both healthy. You can do it. Why not?
When we were talking about where do you think you want to live, this goes back several months ago before we decided to rent the house. At one point, we're sitting in our little gazebo, we're looking, can see the harbor. And I said, Jerry, would you ever consider like moving to Portugal? He goes, sure. Why not? If we like it better than where we are and it has more to offer than where we are, why not? So that got things started.
That's the Spain and Portugal trip this time. Yeah.
Yeah. The Spain and Portugal trip. And then also the idea of, we don't have to be committed here. And we found out that there, some people were really disappointed to hear that we want to be traveling around or renting out the house. They go, after all the work you did. We said, we're not attached to it. Yeah, we did a lot of work and it looks beautiful, but we're not attached to it. We don't have a lot of our own belongings here. And, we'll be happy wherever we go.
Well, I think that's probably a great way to kind of end too, because I think that, because both of you have gotten to that point, right, where you've kind of sold everything, neither one of you have kids, it's the two of you, you can do whatever you want, but you've also been able to detach from those things, right? And so because you don't have the attachment, it opens up a whole bunch of possibilities and choices that you can make,
Right.
right? That a lot of people can't, because we tend to want to be so attached to certain things, or other stuff like that, where you guys haven't done that. That it opens up and gives you a lot more freedom.
Yeah, there's a lot of freedom. I mean, there's a guy that Jerry plays tennis with here, and he said, I could never do that. I'm too attached to my stuff. And we're like, what kind of stuff? Like, what kind of stuff? Because it would be like, what stuff is more important than experiencing? And for us, it's the experience of, different cultures and communities and food. And, we're big foodies. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, Marty,
There we are.
Thank you for coming on. No, it's
Thank you.
I just, and I wish you and Jerry the best. I mean, hopefully we'll still connect anyway as well, because goodbye is never really goodbye. But
I'm actually going to do I'm going to create a new page on Facebook just for anybody who wants to follow the adventure.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so as soon as I have the new page set up, I'll let you know if you want to get it out. If any of your people who are listening want to see it.
Yeah, no, that'll be great, because I always enjoy kind of seeing what you're doing, and like I said, I mean, smiling and just being happy for the life that you've created. And I appreciate you taking the time to kind of go through this, because, like I said, I think before, I kind of see you as a big sister.
Yeah.
And it's
I'm happy to be your big sister.
Well, I like it, and I appreciate you talking through some of this stuff, because again, I mean, I'm not perfect. I've still got some holdups on some of these things as well too, but it's nice to see your journey and the things that have kind of clicked for you. Yeah. And
just know that there's been no fear. There's no fear at all. At any point in any of it, whether it's moving from Kansas City to La Jolla, or La Jolla to here, or Jerry, or any of it. Fear of not working, no. I mean, it was uncomfortable giving up like what I thought, my career. It was uncomfortable, but I never had any fears with it. So I think it goes back to your question of being able to trust it. If you have a lot of fear around it,
then you're not going to trust, right?
Right. It's not the right thing.
Yeah. So we got to get rid of that fear. And like you said, I think that's an important distinction, the difference between fear and maybe being uncomfortable.
Right.
Right. That just because you're uncomfortable doesn't mean you have to be in fear.
I wouldn't even say get rid of the fear. I would say accept the fear, because the fear is telling you something.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to just figure out, what is the fear telling you? Is it telling you that you're just holding on to nothing, that you're holding on too long? Or is there something that is fearful that isn't going to be the right thing for you? And your inner guidance will tell you.
Well, yeah, you just got to trust your gut, right? That's what we were talking about before, right? That, and we don't always listen, but again, we learn, we grow, as we live. And I appreciate your wisdom and the life that you've created. I love talking
to you. I do. So, but I better go, because we could stay on this forever.
I know, we'd be on here forever, and you live too far away that we can't have lunch, so we'll have to hook up on this again.
We can do this again after our 6 months.
I would like that very much, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like that very much to hear the next round of adventures from Marty.
Good. Stay tuned.
From Dr. Marty Stanley.
Yeah, really.
All right.
I love you to pieces.
Thank you, my friend. I love you too.
Take care.
Thanks.